Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
What is up, everybody? Episode 164. Real quick, before I get into the nuts and bolts of the intro here, which I'll try to keep as short as possible, a programming note. If you're listening to this show at the day of release, tonight at 9 p.m., I will be doing a special live Sports Card Nation. Follow us on Sports Card Nation YouTube channel or Twitter or Facebook. We'll be going live at 9 p.m. Eastern. My two guests are, this is a special episode. My two guests are, gentleman's name is Tim. I'll tell you what his claim to fame is. And Andy Strong, the owner of Parlor City Sports Cards here in Binghamton, New York, about an hour and a half away from me. Tim, in Parlor City, opened some Bowman's Best and pulled the one-of-one Superfractor, Wander Franco. And having both of those guys on a special live Sports Card Nation tonight. If you want to check it out, come in the chat room and interact with us. But we're going to talk about the pulling of that card, where it's going, what is it graded, is it going to a big auction house, and what are the future plans with the card, how it all went down, a little behind the scenes, and talk to Andy about the store, and, you know, obviously probably the biggest card pulled from that store, but we'll find out if it is or what was the biggest pull prior to that one, if you will, and going to be a fun show. Check that out. That's tonight. If you're hearing this and you missed the show already, you can watch it on the YouTube channel after the fact, or catch it as part of the audio for Monday's Hobby Quick Hit. So we'll release the audio portion of that live show that we're doing tonight in place of Monday's Hobby Quick Hit. So catch the video live or the audio on Monday. Again, we haven't done the episode yet, but I'm sure it'll be very interesting to learn how that all went down in the future plans for that controversial card, kind of. You know, that was the whole rookie debate. We'll talk a little bit about that too as well. But let's get to today's show. Got a great guest, as always, a good friend of mine, someone I've gotten to know very well in the hobby. Mike Moynihan, guy doesn't mince words like me. And when we get together, it's always a fun convo. And much of what we say on the air, our off-the-air conversations aren't much different. We're two guys that kind of speak from our heart, don't mince words, give you our honest assessment and tell the truth. And always refreshing to have those kind of conversations. And think you'll enjoy it. I'll give you a little tease, too. We're going to talk about a future collaboration in that conversation as well. I always enjoy talking to Mike on the air, off the air, doesn't matter, because the conversations aren't that much different. It's just one is either recorded or it's not. But either way, we have some funny and great conversations. So I'm biased, but that's how I feel. So I see a lot of people posting. Getting out of the hobby, having a sale, getting rid of all my cards. I don't necessarily like to see that. I hope everyone can stay and enjoy the hobby. There's different reasons people get out of the hobby, right? Some financial, sometimes medical, sometimes time-consuming. And so to each their own, as I always say. But one thing I just want to say, I won't draw on about it, but, if you get out of the hobby for whatever reasons, that's your business, but please don't let some of that negative stuff that, rears its ugly head sometimes, as we've seen here, even more so in January. Don't let that stuff be the reason you leave, okay? I know it bothers you. It bothers me too. I get it. But don't let one or two people or whatever ruin the hobby for you. And you can still enjoy it. You don't have to like everything that goes on. I get it, but you can still enjoy it. And so if that's the reason you're leaving, I'd hope you reconsider. If it's for other reasons that that are your own personal ones, there's nothing I can say about that. So with that being said, that house cleaning done, let's get this show underway.
This is Mike Summer from the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute. Don't forget, the hobby is the people.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Sports Card Nation! It's now time to chop it up with our featured guest on the one-of-one card shop guest line. Let's go!
Real happy to be joined by my next guest. He's a friend. I'm glad to call a friend. He's been on the show before. It's been a while. But without further ado, Mr. Mike Moynihan, welcome.
Hello, sir. I am wearing, if you're watching on YouTube, the appropriate attire for a Sports Card Nation episode.
I see that. Extra points for Mike, and I appreciate that. But, I don't know. Not much has happened since the last time you were on last year, so I don't know what the heck we're going to fill time and talk about. But we'll figure we'll figure something out. I obviously joke a lot. Heck, you can't go a week. We could do a show a week just on the news of the week, as you well know, and you do that between Bench Clear Media and your own show, and crazy start to 2022. Not a great one as far as some bad stuff and bad actors of the hobby, as they say, and I got to give credit. I stole a term from Ty Wilson in Breaker Culture and Bench Clear. He used the term hobby reset. Now, we've talked about this before with, some people call it correction, some people call it a crash. You yourself said if you look at it in financial terms and percentages, it's more of a crash. But hobby reset seems to probably split that ground in the middle and kind of, you can't argue with it, because that's, to me, it's really one of the perfect terms. It's kind of, things are sort of going back to similar levels pre-boom, if you will. I mean, you agree? I know it's Ty's term. I don't think you're going to disagree with him necessarily, but would you say that's a pretty accurate assessment, hobby reset?
Yeah, I mean, when Ty and I were trying to decide what to name that episode, when we were talking through that stuff, we were thinking about the Great Reset, and then we said the hobby reset, and we're like, oh, that's it, and so it just makes sense. I mean, we are in a period of the hobby trying to figure out what it's going to be, I think, over the next few years. And that starts with what collectors look like, what are flippers, investors kind of leaving the market. What is Fanatics going to look like in terms of how they do sports cards? There's so many things that are kind of being reset. It's not the same old. And do we go back to where we were, 2018, 2019? Or are we going to have a new normal? And the reality is nobody knows yet. Everything's being reset. And we'll kind of see how that transpires over the next year to 5 years.
Yeah, and everyone, and I've talked about it on my show, when prices go down, if you're a seller, it's not the greatest thing, but it's a great opportunity when you want to buy some cards too. So it's not always doom and gloom when we talk about prices going down. I mean, some who are just kind of counting dollar signs. And look, I set up at shows too. I get it. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite about it. But, you got to kind of roll with the punches. So when that reset happens, correction happens, however you want to coin it, it's an opportunity to buy some stuff that previously might have been sort of outside your grasp. Now it's kind of come back into reach, and especially if it's something you feel like, hey, this is going to go back up again. It's just not so much if, it's just when. It's a great opportunity to buy some stuff that before was like, I can't afford that right now.
Well,
And in grading, go ahead.
yeah, the overall feeling, I talk to dozens of collectors just like you do. And
Yeah,
what I hear is behind the scenes, let's just call it happiness is here again, because the old school collector kind of people that I talk to are kind of rejoicing the fact that they're not priced out anymore. And so many of us, so many collectors got priced out over the last couple of years, just going, I'm not. And maybe it's a little bit of, I remember when, milk cost a nickel kind of idea.
yeah.
And, it's like, God, that card used to only be $10 and now it's 100. And that just felt like, no, I'm not paying that for that. That doesn't make any sense. And it happened so quickly. It wasn't like it happened gradually over a
It was
decade.
like a light switch. It was like a
It
light
was
switch.
like, wow, you wake up and vintage baseball, which is the area I focus on mainly, has come back down a little bit. I think the reset part of it is, and this is how it works in most markets, is you have kind of 3 steps forward, 1 step back. You never really necessarily go back. I don't think we'll see prices 2018, 2019 levels again, especially on high quality, just vintage baseball.
Yeah.
We have a new level of higher than it was, but not high as it was in the peak. I mean, I'm seeing cards that are down 30, 40, 50% from the peak of March, 2021, February, March, April timeframe. So in the last year, things have come back down. They're still not as cheap as they were, but
Yeah.
they're way cheaper than the peak. And I hear collectors generally just being glad that that's happening, because we all want to just acquire more cards, and it now gives us more room in our collecting budget to do that. We can get more stuff.
And the last time we spoke, like on the air, if you will, was when I was on your show, Golden Age of Cardboard. Said it right this time.
You did.
And, we were talking about, and I kind of said to you, like, hey, Mike, I think the vintage niche is kind of sort of immune to this dip. And you said, hey, not so fast, John. And you pulled out a sheet and put it on the screen, and it did affect the vintage market. Now, we both know there's certain players, certain cards that are sort of going to be, hobby reset proof in this case. Unfortunately for me, Jackies don't get any cheaper no matter what. The Manals and their cards of those likes are sort of going to be what they are, and they're going to cost a premium to acquire no matter what the what's going on in real world economics. But I was surprised that episode when you kind of put that on the screen and pointed out, hey, and I loved it because it was your stuff, and you were saying, hey, look, I know this for a fact. This is my stuff that I'm tracking, and take a look at this. So if you think it's not affecting the vintage, I got news for you. And you pointed that out. I guess just following up to that, I didn't realize. I knew it probably did a little bit, but I didn't realize to the extent. I mean, has that continued? Has that sort of bottomed off? How would you assess it? Since then, since that episode to where we are now in the vintage space.
Yeah, that decline has flattened out. Certainly, we're kind of seeing new levels being set for some key cards. I think the high end of the market is not affected. But you said something, I think it was on your show, Hobby Quick Hits, today, as a matter of fact, or this week, that, yeah, some of this stuff, those are areas we don't even play in. Those are areas, the $1 million cards, the $500,000, those types of things are cards that are just only a few people can buy anyway. And so those are kind of immune. I'm talking about, vintage cards of Mantle, Aaron, Mays, Robinson, Clemente, guys like that I think plateaued on a bottom here and are kind of running along. Some are going up a little down, but even though they've come down from the highs, again, they're still higher than they were. So there's no screaming deals out there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think we're going to get there, but in terms of vintage, and that's okay. Like, the end of the day, a collector wants to buy a card as cheap as they can. If you're a seller, you want to sell it for the most that you can. And the reality is you end up usually somewhere in the middle. I was at the Dallas Card Show a few weeks ago, and I found some good deals on vintage, not crazy great deals where I was feeling like I stole the card, but deals that I felt really comfortable. Dealers were much more willing at this Dallas show than they had been at previous Dallas shows. It's like dealers were caught in, the peak mentality. And for a little while, they were kind of stuck there. Reality started to set in months and months later, like, oh, okay. And they were a lot more agreeable to discuss, to compare to recent sales, and really look at, look, that card might have been worth what it was then. And the line I get a lot that cracks me up is, well, I'm into it way more than that.
Yeah, well,
my answer is that's not my problem. I mean,
yeah, that's exactly. And as a dealer myself, I've never said that, because for that reason you said, because I've heard that being on the other side of the table too. And that's exactly right, Mike. It's not my business, number one. And that's really neither here nor there. This is what the market is now. It's in any, people pay for houses and have had to sell their house at less than they paid for to get out. Like, I know people have done that. So it sucks when you do it. I get it. I get the frustration, but you can't put that on me as someone who's interested I'm not going to overpay. Neither are you or anyone else should, because you're into it for more than that. If you want to if you want to not put it out for sale and hope it rebounds and then put it back out where you're okay, that I understand that. But to tell a potential buyer, like, oh, I have too much. Well, I mean, what do you want them to do? Like, feel bad for you and just you can't expect someone to do that. And even to say it just doesn't make sense. And usually kind of tells you the sort of the seller's mindset at that point. And something like that, I'm not even going to put out if that's I'm not even going to have that come up as a conversation, because no one's going to win that. Right. So I
like to say I'm not going to overpay for your mistake, and the opposite is true too. If it goes up, I'm not going to go as a buyer go, hey man, I know you only paid $100 for this. You're trying to sell it to me for $200. Why don't you just give it to me for $100? They're going to go, no, it's worth $200. Yeah. Just the same works the other way. Right.
Yeah, so you can't have your cake and eat it too. So it's just a conversation I won't even entertain as a seller. I just, if I either put the card out, and I talked about this recently too, I either put the card out at current conditions, or maybe I just leave it home. I got stuff I leave home, and I just don't want to sell for that. I'd probably buy more, even though it's what the comps. I'd rather have 2 or 3 more and just sit on them and hold on to them and keep them or whatever. I'm not just going to put them out. I respect that more than to put it out there. Just, hope you reel someone in that's going to like pay over current market conditions. I think that's, I don't know. Yeah. That's not how I would do it. But
I do think there are dealers that hope that someone will walk by and pay the price that they have because there are plenty of people out there, John, that buy cards that don't do their research and don't know what certain card is going for in the current market, and they might be the sucker. It's just not going to be me.
Yeah, but I think and I agree with you. I think there's dealers that do that, but I think now with so many different pricing tools, we could do a whole show and not name them all. Those people are fewer and far between. Let's put it that way. And I think more people are keen to what the market value is. So you're going to take more gruff than catch someone off guard, I think, and make the sale. And to me, I think dealers are smart enough, most of them, I don't want to say all of them, to figure that out, and rather than rub someone the wrong way. And, word of mouth can spread. Like, that guy's like twice comps over there in that corner. And, you'll lose someone even coming to your table potentially. That's me. If I have something that fits that description, I'm just not going to put it out and be that guy. You know what I mean? So But there are you make a good point. There are guys that'll do that. Just say, listen, they might even say that. Listen, I'm over comps, but I'm into it for that. Like you brought up. Like, but what do you want someone like you said? And I would say the same thing. How's that my fault? You know what I mean? Why am I going to pay for, if you want to call it a mistake, or where the market conditions are now, where they weren't, or they aren't that no more. So, going to take a real quick break, but we'll be back with Mike after that.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group, or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
We are back with more with Mike Moynihan. It's funny, even like people bring their boxes up to my table, like, are you buying? And I say, yeah, I'll take a look, because I always like to try to buy some stuff when I can. I'll pick out a few cards, and they're trying to sell it for kind of comps, and I'm like, well, if I buy it for that, what am I going to put it in my showcase for? And they're like, well, add $20-$40 to it. But I'm like, I'm buying it at the comp. Someone else is going to come to my table and say, this is what they go for. And, they don't grasp the concept. You know what I mean? That there's a difference between being behind the table, paying sales tax, and all that fun stuff. And, it's frustrating sometimes because, and not everyone's like that. I don't want to, again, paint with a broad brush. But, some people get how, I've bought cards where someone says, hey, it's a $200 card. I know you gotta make some, give me 140. You can put 180 on it. You make $40. And, sometimes I buy those. Depends on the card, right? Maybe not all the time, but at least it's a starting point. That person is showing they understand how the process works. And, everyone, so it's the people who like look at cards almost like gold and silver. That's like the melt price, and that's what you got. Like, that's what you got to give me, because that's what the comps are, and don't realize, like, you have to resell it, and you're not going to be able to get more than comps most of the time. I mean, there's an exception, like you said. You can, maybe put it out there higher price and hope you get someone to pull the trigger on it. But I don't want to do that if I don't, not on purpose anyway. So, it's what it is. I think, people are going to, this is not just a 1 month deal. It's going to be, people are going to have to get used to it. Do you think people are going to get out, what do you want to call the quick flippers, or people just looking to, buy on Monday, sell on Tuesday? Do you think those folks, this is something that's going to drive them out of the hobby, or you think not necessarily?
You mean just the drop in prices?
Yeah. Do you think that's going to have?
Yeah, I think the margins are being squeezed all over the hobby, from retail wax to singles. We've got the junk slab era coming, and there's a tsunami of slabs hitting the market every week from PSA and SGC and everywhere. So I think the supply is going to outstretch demand, and there's just not going to be enough room. Most things, not everything. This isn't a universal statement, but it's going to be a lot harder for them to do that. And I think the easy money has all been made is probably what I really feel. And I think you're gonna have to grind a lot more now. You're gonna have to really work hard if you're in that game. I am not in that game, and glad that I'm not. But the reality is, I know how you feel about things, John, and I, for the most part, agree with your sentiment about being welcoming to people in the hobby. But I want to be welcoming to people in the hobby that are in the hobby that
for the right reasons,
truly love the hobby, and are not just.
But how do you? I don't disagree with you, Mike. But sometimes, how do you know that? You know what I mean?
I'm not,
at least initially.
Yeah, I'm not the judge, jury, and executioner in that equation. I just, you can tell pretty quick if you have a conversation.
Yeah,
with
no,
somebody,
I don't
they love
disagree
the hobby.
with that, but you can't tell necessarily right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
No,
my
I'm
whole
not.
thing, listen, well, I'm just gonna say I don't like everything that happens in the hobby. I believe me, if you heard my show enough, it's not always roses and daisies and all beautiful stuff. I did a show today on Hobby Quick Hits that was not really upbeat, if you will. And, sometimes we have to talk about that. And I want to get your opinion on that as well. But, I like to be welcoming. Maybe it's the sentimental guy in me because as a 7-year-old kid, I was sort of welcome. I don't like everything that everybody does once they get in the hobby. But I guess as long as everything's above board, there's no, someone's not getting ripped off or misinformation. As long as it's legal and legit, even though it may not be my style, to each their own kind of a deal. But I get it. I mean, everything everyone does affects the hobby. And if you're passionate and love it, some things may rub you the wrong way. I'll be the first to say that. But unless someone's doing something where you can just say, that's wrong, that's illegal, there should be some repercussions there, whatever those may be, it's hard to really, say, well, you shouldn't be in it. I may not be what I do or what you do, and we may not like it, and we may have reasons why. Here's why I wouldn't do that, because this is, whatever we say, right? I want to sleep good at night, and I don't think I could if I approached a hobby like that. I've always been to each their own as long as everything's above board. No one's getting kind of rooked or taken advantage of, or it's just plain criminal in nature, which this year, not just this year, but really kind of the front end here of 2022 has been sort of the poster boy for illegal stuff. And, not to, I guess we could segue into that. We've seen the fake slabs right there in your Dallas card show. We've seen breakers, promise to give away everything and then renege on their promise and just becomes, a blank show, 4-letter word. I don't want to say, but fill in the blanks. And then we've seen just all sorts of, we've seen the PSA stuff with Card Collector 2 going to a third party. That third party marks cards, ran up $1 million tab with PSA. My first question is, how does PSA let someone run $1 million tab up? Card Collector 2, Ryan, who I think overall is a decent guy, but it appears maybe a little disingenuous. He kind of posed as if he was submitting directly, and then it come out that that's not the case. He did, paying out of his pocket in a sense twice to make sure the people that submitted through him are going to get their cards back slabbed and graded. So good on him there, but maybe being a little bit more transparent to begin with. So some of these negative stories, not the first time fake slabs has appeared. That this is something that's going to be a continuous thing as long as it can be done. And for the 2 years that we had what we call the hobby boom, and the hobby was the darling on every newscast, made mainstream media, financial news. 2022 is look, and I think it reflects negative on the hobby. And what all this bad stuff, Mike, I mean, I just think it reflects poorly on the hobby. And as someone that's been in it a long time, I know you have too, it bothers me, even if it doesn't affect me directly. I just care enough about the hobby. I know you're passionate. Kind of your thoughts. Do you feel the same way? Are you kind of like, hey, didn't bother me? It is what it is. Or where do you kind of fall in that order?
The thought that comes to mind as I think about that after 40 plus years in this hobby is it makes me sad to think that, the hobby growth over the last couple of years, there could be people that, as we talked about earlier, maybe they got into it initially for the money, but they fell in love with it and they loved the history of the games that they follow, whatever sport and the players, and they followed it more and it gave them a connection to that. All of these bad actors and negative shenanigans that are happening might drive that person away for the wrong reasons. And then they end up missing out on enjoying all that this hobby has to offer. That makes me sad. None of it's affected me directly, and I think 99% of collectors / people in the hobby would say that it doesn't affect them either. But you hear about this stuff and it just creates such a negative vibe, just like when PWCC and trimming, and it's funny how fast we forget things.
Yeah.
That you mentioned that on your show. You mentioned we can speak with our hobby dollars, and I look at a situation where I decided when that happened, what was that, 18, 19? I'm never going to buy a card from PWCC again. And I'm kind of on an island, with a few other people, because PWCC is doing great and they have their own private auctions and all these things. And you're like, wait a second, do you guys not remember literally just a couple of years ago, they were embroiled and in a huge scandal that didn't really go away. It just got lost to memory. And the other thing that comes to mind besides sadness is greed is a bitch, and greed will drive people to do things they might not normally do. And we are seeing and money, when you get money, people get greedy, people do things maybe not, again, like I said, the way they would normally do. And it drives us to insanity, really, a lot of people. And it's sad to see that, because that's not what this hobby's about. It's not about greed. It's about sharing and stories and history and great performance on the field and on the court and all these different places. So that's what the core of the hobby is. And when greed seeps in, it tends to kind of spoil it. And if you think, if you have a jug of water, how much pee do you have to put in it to make it to where you wouldn't drink it? Not very much. And that's kind of the way it is with the hobby. The more greed and negative shenanigans you put in it, even if it's small, if it's not things that affect you directly, but you go, I don't want to be a part of that. Thanks, but that's just terrible.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said, Mike. Time to take another quick break, but we'll be right back after that. Greg Morris Cards wants to buy your cards. A long-trusted name in the sports card business, Greg has been buying sports card collections for over a decade now. Any sport, baseball, basketball, football, or hockey, in any era, vintage or modern, will do. Just no junk wax era sets, please. To learn more and to sell Greg Morris your cards, go to www.gregmorriscards.com. Fill out the consignment sale request form and someone will get back to you on how to get cash for your cards. Also, if you're a dealer looking to sell your collection, Greg Morris wants to talk. Plenty of dealers use Greg Morris' massive eBay platform as a way to consign their cards. Take advantage of Greg's experience in the hobby to get more bang for your buck. Sports Card Nation is back with more with Mike. I think to myself, how can, like you mentioned PWCC, I've talked about them ad nauseum on this program. I've had Jesse Craig on. I asked him what I thought were some tough questions. Kind of got the answers I expected from him. But I think to myself, how does like a company like that survive? Like in other industries, something like that happens. You hear, companies go out of business. They have to sell, rebrand, have new ownership, kind of come in, issue a statement like, hey, we're the new regime. We're what's happened in the past is in the past. But yet in the hobby, that company not only survives, like you said, thrives, gets even bigger and better. And I think you hit it right on the head. It's greed. It's the money. I think people will overlook illegal stuff or alleged illegal stuff, if you will, because they're making money on it. They don't care. It's all about, it's the me mentality, right? Whatever they do behind their, that's fine. I just sold, 2 cards from their vault and made, $1.5 million. And that's fine. They told me they're doing everything above board. I believe them because I just got paid. I think that's what it is. The other thing is something I talked about on Hobby Quick Hits this week is, the hobby's so big now that maybe, me and you and other, especially in the content creation and the thing, we're keeping tabs on everything and we hear all these stories as they occur. But there are other people in the hobby who aren't along those lines, if you will. So they don't even know about half the things. And so they're not even aware. And so the hobby's just so big now that the news is, even though it travels fast, it doesn't get to everybody. And there's people who I was talking to somebody, I won't mention his name. He has a card store, and a person came in, that deals with BBCE, and didn't even hear about the Logan Paul stuff until that store owner told him. And he deals with him, and yet he had not heard about that. And that's a big story. I mean, that when I opened my phone, that was on CN. I don't know if it was CNN or CNBC. It was a regular news channel that picked it up. It's $3.5 million. That's going to make the regular news outlets. And so, but yet this hobbyist who deals with that company that was involved in that had no idea that it occurred. And
there was, this happened in, 29. I was on Cheddar Financial Network. They contacted me, a producer contacted me. I went on their financial network to talk about the trimming scandal and all that with PWCC. Yeah. And that happened, a few years ago. But if you think about what is our hobby, doubled since 2019, probably in terms of number of people that are involved in the hobby from little to big, in terms of how much they're into it. Let's say it's doubled. I think that's actually being conservative, but let's say it's doubled in terms of number of people involved in the hobby. They don't even know. They weren't even around when that happened. And so for them not to know is not their fault. They just weren't around to hear it. And here's the thing. We move on like everybody else does in news cycles. We move to the next. There's always the next thing. And so that gets further and further in our rearview mirror. And we kind of move on to the next. Well, let's deal with the next crisis and the next scandal and the next bad thing, or the next good thing for that matter. Yeah. The next product comes out, this product sucked. Well, there'll be a new one in a week. So don't worry. You can talk about it in the moment, and people have very short memories. They don't bring it back up. They don't revisit it. They don't go, hey, let's look at that 2 years later and say, what's changed? And if you looked at the PWCC scandal and said, what's changed? The answer is nothing. There is nothing that they have done to remedy that, fix that, address that.
Some new, I guess the answer to that, Mike, would be some new people on staff. If that's a change, I guess, they'd point to is, hey, we have new policies in place. I was told, we have new fail safes here to prevent that from occurring. It's easy to say, right? You know what I mean? The kind of the, company speak. I get it. When I did that interview and Jesse's defense, very nice, spoke to him even when we weren't recording. I kind of knew the answers I was going to get to the questions I was going to ask, but I had to ask the questions. I'm also, that interview took a while to go down because for many times they wanted to come on and not answer any questions pertaining to that stuff. I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not fair to my listeners. If I did that interview, I'd get 20 emails. Like, how did you not ask about that, John? Shame on you. We're not going to listen to your show no more after that, and I wouldn't do that. Even forget whether they listen or not. I'm not going to do that kind of, let's plug everything great about your company and like act like this never happened when it did. And, people who were involved in the hobby at that time, most of them know. But the hobby's just so big. And I agree with what you said. Some people are new where that happened before and they just have not heard about it. It's not their fault, like you said. But there is a segment, that have, and it's just like either they don't care or they're profiting themselves and they're willing to sweep that under the rug and say, hey, whatever, and that part's not good, but there's not a lot you can do about it. And, I hate talking about it, but at the same time, I feel like I think you agree as a content creator too. You gotta talk about it. and at least make some people aware that, hey, be careful. This is, alleged, or this may be going on. There's two sides to every story. I get that. But a lot of times when you're hearing the same entity, the same company, and it's one thing after another, I'm kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. How is it continue to kind of come up? Anyone can say anything about anyone. Someone could say John, used to beat up his son when his son. It's not true, right? But if 4 or 5 people start, then it starts. People say, "What's going on there?" Like someone investigating it, So, I guess it's easy to make accusations, but when it kind of keeps rearing its head, you start to have to wonder. And but like you said, either people don't know, they kind of get in sort of after the fact and don't really research that, and I don't have to research it. It'll make them a bad hobbyist. Or you got that other segment, and there's a lot of these too, like I said, that just I don't care, whatever, doesn't affect me. It either doesn't affect me or I'm making money with that company, whatever. I'm willing to overlook some ills, if you will. And
that's
unfortunately,
when you have so I decided, I did a video about it. I bought a card from PWCC, and I said, this is my last card, because I bought a card from them. And then a few days later, all the news kind of hit, and I got the card in. I'm like, this is my last card I'm ever going to buy from PWCC. And here's why. And it's not that I'm doing it. I'm not trying to be self-righteous or anything. I'm far from perfect, but I decided to go, I'm going to draw a line and go, no, I'm not going to support that anymore.
Principle. You have principles. That's your principle.
There's so many people out there that are, pissed off at PSA and whatnot. Well, then don't use them anymore. If you don't like the way they do business, choose not to do it. And I don't understand why people get I personally, what's great about the way I collect is I don't care. I'd like to get my cards back sooner rather than later, but the shutdown, I have cards at PSA now. Okay, I'll get them when I get them. They're going into the dark hole anyway, into the beast. So I don't, if I get them now or 6 months from now or whenever, fine. I think PSA has missed many opportunities to kind of help their image, and they have swung and missed at every opportunity.
All right, we're going to take a break here from one of our great sponsors, but right after that, we'll be right back.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini Direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
Glad to be back with more with Mike Moynihan.
For example, the Ryan thing, right? Or the Marks cards. It's not really the Ryan thing. He was just caught up in it. But the Marks cards thing, he was the one that really kind of screwed the bed on that. And not that Ryan should get a pass or anything, but Marks cards did something bad, and PSA could have done a whole lot of things. What if they would have said, you know what, guys, we'll identify who these people are. We're going to grade your cards, and we may not do it. They could do it for free, or they could say, hey, we're going to give you guys a super secret, $5 a card, some minimal number, right?
Yeah.
To allow these people to at least get their cards back graded, because from what I understand, they're getting their cards back raw. They're not even graded according to the PSA statement. So they're going to get – here's what PSA is doing. They're sending the cards back. Oh, by the way, and you get to pay for the shipping, and they're not graded, and you're out the money that you had paid to Mark's Cards to get them graded. Yeah. Thanks. We're trying to help these guys. Are you really PSA? Because that doesn't sound like you're trying to help them. I also thought about – and I said this on a show on Ty and I show today on the fly on YouTube where I said, what if SGC took the reins and said, hey, all you guys with Mark's card, somehow try to prove it with an invoice or something. We'll grade your cards for free, or we'll grade your cards for $5 a card.
Yeah, they
Talk about a marketing opportunity for a company like SGC.
Yeah, I don't know the legal I don't know if that opens. Can there be a lawsuit pertaining to that? I don't know how that.
Well, if they get their cards back from PSA, that collector can do whatever they want at that
That's
point.
True. That's true. It's not under obligation to.
Yeah, if SGC says, "Hey, you guys kind of got a raw deal there, we're gonna try to make it right." And what a marketing you know what I mean? That would be such goodwill. PSA again should be doing this themselves. I'm not saying anything necessarily good about PSA. People are blaming PSA because they let the backlog happen. That led to all of these things happening. The reality is there's enough blame to go around. You can choose to be pissy about it. You can choose to be you can choose to do something else with it. You can choose to vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
Plenty of grading companies out there. If you don't like PSA, if you don't like, or you could get rid of groups. What's the point of group? Just make the price the same, and then you don't have any reason to use a group submitter. If you save a couple bucks, don't give group submitters a break. Make it all the same.
Well, even with PSA, Mike, like they I don't know how well they know Mark's cards. His name is Mike from Mark's Cards. I don't know how well they know Mike's from Mark's Cards to let him run up $1 million tab. That's sort of like I said on PSA. PSA maybe should say, hey, let's figure out who these cards go to that aren't Mike's from Mark's Cards. That's a different. If they're his own personal, we're not doing him any favors. He owes us $1 million. Right. But these other people who trusted him with their cards, let's figure something out. Get them their cards back graded, and whether they, I don't want to be Mr. Sue, but PSA will have to find out about how they can go about getting their $1 million bill paid. I don't know, what the legal ramifications of that. He's claiming what I'm hearing now. He's claiming bankruptcy now. So this thing's a gigantic ball of mess, and I don't know how it ends. I think some of these collectors are going to probably wind up paying twice. I don't know. You got to remember, even with Ryan, that's not all his cards. His is 100,000. It's 1/10 of what was submitted to PSA. If you do the math, it's 100,000, and Mark's cards owes $1 million, so it's 1/10. So there's $900,000 of other cards that are nothing to do with Card Collector 2. And so how is that going to, Ryan's not going to pay $1 million for everyone. He's going to take, and no one should expect him to do that. He's going to take care of people who trusted him and do the right thing there, if you will. But it's still $900,000 worth of other people's cards not connected to Ryan in Ohio. And so I don't know what's going to happen there. Mark's apparently is filing bankruptcy because he's not going to be able to pay the $1 million. And again, what I'm hearing, probably what you're hearing, his plan was to take that money, launch his store, do well, and easily pay the PSA bill. Well, it didn't fall that way. Chips didn't land that way on the table. And now he's just, filing bankruptcy and saying, my bad, whoops, Well, my bad and whoops aren't going to make those $900,000 worth of other people's cards feel any better. And him filing bankruptcy, I don't know, that doesn't aid them. So I don't know. It's a giant mess. Like you said, PSA could really use this as a moment to kind of, do the right thing, if you will, or definitely a good PR look, if you will. And even SGC as a competitor could say, hey, if you get your cards back raw and ungraded, here's what we'll do. With a little proof that you were in that pile. Here's what we'll do for you here at SGC.
They need to go above and beyond. They can't just do something that shows that you and they don't have to care about us. I'm not saying they do. They should though. They're a business, right?
Yeah.
They exist to make money. And I understand that and am actually on board with that. I just think your customers are your lifeblood. Why not be generous? Why not go above and beyond in an instance like this that was at least partly their fault? They would say it's none of their fault, but they can't.
Well, I don't care. I wouldn't let my dad run up $1 million tab. So
Right.
like, why? How do you let anybody run $1 million tab? Like, that's the number one. That's the first thing that stuck out to me. Like, how well do you trust somebody to say, "Hey, you owe $1 million. We'll take it. As soon as you can pay us, let us." I don't. I submit. I've submitted to PSA. I've submitted to SGC. I've submitted to Beckett. I've always paid. Heck, I know SGC sponsors you. They sponsor. I don't get to like not pay up front. I pay up front just the same. Like I'm not complaining about that. That's the way it should be. Like, how did somebody get $1 million tab? Like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's crazy.
It is.
And I guess that would be my first question if I asked PSA or anyone from PSA. Like, how did you let? I wouldn't let a relative I love and trust, even if they had $1 million, I wouldn't let them run up $1 million tab. I mean,
They came
doesn't
out,
make any sense.
Their statement said they're making some changes on their policy on how they deal with group submitters and how they're going to start getting deposits and some other things to try to not let that happen again. You're right. How does it happen in the first place? We'll never know. They won't ever tell us, I promise. But you can look at that situation and shrug your shoulders. I know a guy that submitted to PSA a few weeks ago, and once his cards moved into under the new, PSA submission, recent submission, and he got charged as soon as they entered his cards. Like, they've already changed. Because all this happened, it's it's late January now. This all happened months ago. In reality, it all just came to light recently. The reality is this has been going on for months. So PSA has had some runway to try to figure out how they're going to do with this. And my buddy was charged as soon as they put his cards in. So they have changed, at least for him. I don't know if it's true across the board, but his experience was he got charged up front instead of on the back end like normal.
Yeah, and that's nothing wrong with that's truthfully the way it should be. That's why this, it's always, listen, Mike, you know this, and I want to finish on a high note here, but it's always easy to say, hey, our bad, or I'm sorry, we're going to change some things after the fact. I mean, that's easy. That's easy. I like to see a little bit more proactiveness so that doesn't become a story, if you will, kind of cut the story out before it becomes a story. And so, again, sure, that's great. You're changing some policies now so this doesn't become a problem in the future, but it's still a problem right now as we speak. So, I don't know, just a mess. But let's and it won't be like you said. There'll be something next week that'll take the attention away from that. I want to step aside for a real quick minute, but we'll be right back after that.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
We are back with Mike Moynihan. Let's not talk about dark clouds. Let's finish on a high note. We're, it's January, late January. We're approaching the National in Atlantic City. It was scheduled there in 2019, and then something called COVID hit, and so that show went by the wayside. At the time I had all reservations made, excited. It's in driving distance for me, well, it's back in Atlantic City, end of July, front end of August. We talking to you before we hit the record button. We both have beach houses that we rented and have people staying with us, so it's always going to be fun. I'm sure we'll meet up and do some stuff as well. That's what what the National's about, is that community and that camaraderie. The hobbies, the people. Shameless plug there, but I'm looking forward to it, and that's the good stuff of the hobby. You're a little close. You brag, you rubbed it in. You're a little closer to the convention center than where I'm at, but I'm not super far away too. So, just kind of your thoughts, on that event as it's coming up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It was 2020 that it was supposed to be in Atlantic City. They canceled it. 2021
Okay.
was back in Chicago.
Yeah, you're right.
And
I got a little amnesia setting in.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm just surprised earlier you could do some higher math. 10%. You were doing.
I didn't like. Here's the fun, real quick. I didn't like math, but I did well. Like I graded well in it. I just wasn't my favorite subject. So figure that one out. But go ahead.
But yeah, I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about the National. It's one of the funnest events. If you're a collector and you're in this hobby and you've never been to a National, you need to try to. We're talking about it now because you have 6 months to try to figure out a way to get there. It's worth every penny, so to speak, and you can enjoy it. Ideally, not for one day. It's very difficult to see what you need to see. It's the most massive thing. It's indescribable. Like if somebody says you've never been before and they try to describe the National in 10 words or less, nope, I need more like 3 hours to tell you about the National. It's impossible to describe until you've been there. But once you're there and you go, especially if you go with friends and are able to go with a group of people, it enriches the experience so much. And I don't know. It's kind of one of those can't miss things for me. It's something I look forward to. It goes on the calendar, and I'm there pretty much come hell or high water. Usually it's around my daughter's birthday, so I always miss my daughter's birthday. And I'm like, honey, just today. I'll celebrate it when you get back.
The best dad award of the year goes to Mr. Mike Moynihan.
Just a day. And this year she'll be 21, so I'm going to miss her 21st birthday. And I said, I'll buy you a beer when I get back or something.
Yeah, hey, Atlantic City is not a bad town maybe to spend your 21st.
Hey, there you go. Maybe I'll take it. But it's one of those events that if you can beg, borrow, steal to get there, you need to try to make it there. So I've never been to Atlantic City, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I've been to Atlantic City, but not for a card show. So I'm looking forward to it. Like you said, you nailed it. I don't know if the first one, I coined it the Super Bowl of the hobby. I heard Steve Menzie actually on this show itself. He said the same thing. I don't know if he heard me and he was just, I mean, that's really what it is though. I mean, that's the first time I went, I said, man, I've never been to a Super Bowl, but just being a huge football fan and watching all week leading up to this, it just has that feel. You have actors there, you have celebrities there, you have obviously sports and athletes there, and then you have people in the hobby, from artists, obviously dealers, content creators. I mean, it encompasses everything. Like you said, one day is not going to cut it. Try to get there at least for a few days. All week is obviously perfect if you can do it. And even though even going every year like I plan to, and like you said yourself, it's still, it doesn't get old, right? It's not like the Renaissance Fair. We have the Renaissance Fair. I don't know if every town does. I went to like 2 of those. My wife liked them. And after like 2 of them, I'm like, I love you, but I don't want to go to the Renaissance Fair anymore. Like take a friend, whatever, take my son. That's not what the National is. That is something you look forward to every year. And just like the hobby's constantly evolving, in turn, the National evolves right along with it. So it's not going to be the exact same. And especially now with the Fanatics kind of getting the licensing, and not just that, but just in general, all the new innovations and things coming down the line, and new people, right? We always make new friends in the hobby that we're going to meet for the first time, and others we're going to see for whatever, this third, fourth, fifth, or numerous double-digit times. It's still fun. In many cases, as you know, it's the one time you might see someone that year, and you take advantage of that and enjoy those moments. And it's those stories. The cards are great. That's why we're all here. But it's always them stories that lead, that go with the cards, that make memories as well. And so it's.
Let me add to your thought of the Super Bowl of the hobby. I agree with that. Think of combining the Super Bowl with the most awesome family reunion you've ever had. We call it the hobby family reunion, because you get to, like you said, see people you may only see once a year at the hobby family reunion. And, we have events to allow people to get to know each other better, to mingle and talk. And, it's so much fun. I can't wait till July. It'll be here before we.
Yeah, and I'm not trying. You don't know how many you're going to get to go to, which and so you always want to go, and you don't know. The circle of life, right? Might be the last time you see someone, and regardless of that, right? You still want. If you don't go, you might not see someone that year and have to wait, in a sense, 2 years, and it's fun. And if you don't have fun at the National, I don't know what to tell you. You're doing something wrong. So yeah, I mean, you don't even. It's fun to buy cards, and I always do. But you don't even have to buy a card, and you can still have fun at the National. So
No
it's something I. Now with what I do for work, being in the teaching profession, I have summers off, and so I don't have to worry about necessarily getting the time off to go. That's one less thing I have to worry about. So it's something. Speaking for myself, and I think you, something I'm going to plan every year. With it being in Atlantic City this year, my wife could care less about cards, but she's going to go and enjoy the beach and a drink and a book. And I'm going to enjoy the card show and seeing you and a lot of other people and have fun. And because she's going, like I told you before we hit record, it's going to actually save me a little money. I talked a little bit about that on a prior episode, so I won't rehash it. But that's a nice perk in itself too. Not that I wouldn't go regardless, but a little feather in my cap, just the same. So I might be able to buy one or two more cards that I wouldn't have if it was, let's say, in Chicago and I had to fly and pay for everything out of my own separate business account, if you will. So,
well, maybe when we go to the show, we can find you a 48 leaf Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, I'm not saving that much. But listen, I've it's going to have to be definitely a low grade, if you will, a 1 or 2 might even be wishful thinking. But someday I play the Mega Millions, not every week, but when it gets up there, just want to win that one time, Mike. That's all. I'm not greedy. Just want to win it once, and buy some of that stuff. But it's fun and looking forward to it each day. You cross it off the calendar. We're one day closer to that event, and so I know I speak for you and a lot of other people, for that matter. A lot of people looking forward to it, and especially with what's. Well, go ahead.
No, maybe in June, late June or something, with about a month to go, I should come on and we can talk about, if you're going to the National, let's do
this every. How about this? We're booking a show right now. Every year I do a national preview. Let's do one together.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a date.
I've been to a few.
Yeah, we can do maybe a home and away series.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yep, that's a date.
I do have a podcast, believe it or not.
Yeah, you do. And speaking of that, I appreciate you coming on this show again. But give everyone out there listening who may not know, I don't know why they wouldn't, but for those that don't, how they can see what you're doing, your YouTube channel, bench clear shows, all that stuff you want to plug. Take your time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been on YouTube for 8 years. I have a channel called Baseball Collector. That's where I just show a lot of my collection and stuff that I love. And then I'm involved with Ty Wilson in Bench Clear Media, which is another YouTube channel where we talk a lot more just about hobby goings-ons and just the states of things, and a little more kind of almost like Sports Card Nation, a little bit of news, a little bit of fun, a little bit of, just more hobby oriented stuff. So both of those are found on YouTube. And then I have a podcast that's part of the Bench Clear Media family called Golden Age of Cardboard. It focuses on vintage baseball and all kinds of different topics revolving around that general idea. It can be found on all podcast, places where you listen to Sports Card Nation. You can probably find Golden Age of Cardboard. So go check it out. Would love to hear what you think.
And you're also part of Hobby Hotline once a month, like myself.
Right.
And
I do
so
Hobby Hotline.
you're all over the place. You're right there with me for like competing on how many shows can we do. And
well, I'm glad I'm an empty nester. That helps.
Yeah.
So
no doubt. Well, Mike, as always, I appreciate it, man. I look for. I'll talk to you obviously before then, but looking forward to, like we talked about here, to closing the show, the Nationals. It's coming up sooner. It seemed like we're a year away, and now here we are, about 6 months out. So coming every day goes by, or one day cross it off. Put the notch and cross it off, and one day closer. So.
Well, thanks, John, for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Anytime. And a little plug for our future National Atlantic City preview show, date to TBA.
Nice.
What doesn't one of one card shop do? From box, case, and personal breaks, there's always fire being pulled. They offer bulk grading subs, and their large store located in Strongsville, Ohio, offers an incredible selection of sports cards, non-sports, and authentic autographed memorabilia. Steve and family will treat you right. Check them out on Instagram at One of One Card Shop or on the web at oneofOneCardShop.com.
That's a wrap for episode 164. I want to thank my guest, Mike Moynihan. Always a pleasure having him on, and always great talking to him. I talk to him besides what you hear, on the air as far as the show or when I've been on his show. Good friend and good guy, and much of what, like I said in the intro, what you hear on the air isn't any real different than what you hear off. We both kind of speak our minds and straight scoop each other and other people, and that's to me, that's being honest and genuine is one of the best things you can be in this hobby. I think the first part of 2022 shows you why being honest and genuine, I think, is important. We've seen sort of the opposite of that to start the year. But again, like I always say, for every one of those negative stories, there's 100 good ones, and we can't lose sight of that or not acknowledge that. And so keep that in mind. So, if you follow the show or how we do the show, you'll know that the guest appears on the cover art in a sports card form, and I print those cards out. I send them to the guest or get them to the guest if we're at a show or the National. I always ask them to sign one at least, and then we put it in the guest book here. Well, we're getting into the the 160s here. We have people come on as repeat guests, so we had to make a card rule, if you will. There's rookie card designations and rules, and even that we don't know all the. Sometimes that gets to be a gray area, but I made a rule for the show. So if a guest appears and they've already had a card done, I'm not going to make another one. They'll still appear on the cover art and all that good stuff, but everyone will get one card, if you will, and that'll be their Sports Card Nation rookie. I can't even say that without chuckling. But so if someone's been on the show and they get the card, that's it. Just to make it simple and have sort of a rule. So not that it changes anything, it doesn't matter, but just thought it'd be a funny little quip to throw in there. So with that being said, we'll be back next Friday with another edition of Sports Card Nation and our guest on that show. Speaking of return people to the show, this gentleman's been on the show before. Him and his company that he represents just made some positive announcements with some changes. SGC President Peter Steinberg will be our guest. We're going to talk about some of those changes at SGC, and we're going to talk about the hobby in general, and obviously going to focus on the grading niche as well and get some of his thoughts. Another guy, speaking of guys that pretty honest and speak their mind, Peter also fits that description too. So that should be very interesting to say the least. That'll be next week. And we'll see you Monday with a new episode of Hobby Quick. It's Monday's show will be the live that I mentioned in the intro with Tim, who pulled the 1/1 Wander Franco Superfractor out of the new Bowman's Best, and Andy Strong, the owner of the shop where that card was pulled, Parlor City Sports Cards in Binghamton, New York. So I did a live video. The audio from that will be released as part of Monday's Hobbies Quick Hit. So there you go.